तृतीयो अध्याय कर्म योगा टेक्स्ट 1 अर्जुनोवाच जयायसि चेत् कर्मणस्ते मता बुद्धिर्जनार्दन तत्किं कर्मणि घोरे मां नियोजयसि केशव.
Arjuna said, O Janardana, O Kesava, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare? If you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work.
Text 2 व्यामी श्रेणे वाक्येन बुद्धिं मोहयसीव मे तद एकं वद निश्चित्य येन श्रेयोहम अपपुनाम्.
My intelligence is built by your equivocal instruction. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me.
Text 3 श्री भगवानुवाच लोकेऽस्मिन् द्विविधा निष्ठा पुरा प्रोक्ता मया नघ ज्ञानयोगेन साङ्ख्यानां कर्मयोगेन योगिनाम्.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O sinless Arjuna, I have already explained that there are two classes of men. Why try to realize the self? Some are inclined to understand it by empirical, philosophical speculation, and other by devotional service.
Text 4 न कर्मणाम् नारम्भा नैष्य कर्मे पुरोश्नुते न च सन्न्यासनादेव सिद्धिं समधिगच्छति.
Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection.
Text 5 न हि कश्यति क्षणमपि जातु तिष्ठे अकर्मकृते कार्यते ह्यवशः कर्म सर्वप्रकृतिर्जिर्गुणे.
Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the quality he has acquired from the mode of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even a moment.
Text 6 कर्मेन्द्रियाणि संयम्य या आस्ते मनसा स्मरन् इन्द्रियार्थान् विमूढात्मा मिथ्याचारः उच्यते.
One who restrains the sense of action, but whose mind dwell on a sense object, certainly dwell himself and is called pretender.
Text 7 यस्त्वम् इन्द्रियाणि मनसा नियम्यारभते अर्जुन कर्मेन्द्रिय कर्मयोगम् असक्ता स विशिष्यते.
On the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control the active sense by the mind and begins karma yoga in Krishna consciousness without attachment, he is by far superior.
Text 8 नियतं कुरु कर्म त्वं कर्म ज्यायोऽहम् अकर्मणा शरीरयात्रापि च तेन प्रसिद्ध्य येद अकर्मणा.
Perform your prescribed duty. For doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work.
Text 9 यज्ञार्थार्थ कर्मणो यत्र लोकयं कर्म बन्धना तदर्थ कर्म कौन्तेये मुक्त संघ समाचर.
Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duty for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage.
Text 10. Sahayagya praja srishtva purovaच prajapati anena prasavishyatyavam aishva stav istakam dhuk.
In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent fourth generation of men and demigods, along with sacrifice for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yagna sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you even desirable for living happily and achieving liberation."
Text 11. Devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantu va parasparam bhavayantaha shreha param avasasyatha.
The demigod, being pleased by sacrifices, will also please you, and though by cooperation between men and demigods, respectively, will regain for all.
Text 12. Istan bhogan hi vo deva dasayante yage bhavita ter datyan pradeyubhyo yo bhuktin sten ev saha.
In charge of the various necessity of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yagna, sacrifice, will supply all necessity to you. But but he who enjoys such a gift without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief.
Text 13. Yagye shishtashinah santo muchyante sarvakilpishe bhujjate te tvav agham papa ye panchate atma karanat.
The devotees of the Lord are realized from all kind of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Other who prepares food for personal enjoyments verily it only sin.
Text 14. Ananad bhavanti bhutani parjaniyad anna sambhava yagyat bhavati parjanyo yagya karma samudbhava.
All living bodies subsist on food grain, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yagna, sacrifice, and yagna is born of prescribed duty.
Text 15. Karma brahmodbhavam vidhi brahmakshara samudbhavam tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yagya pratishtitam.
Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in an act of sacrifice.
Text 16. Evam pravartitam chakram nanu vartayati hi yah aghayur indriya ramo mogham parth sajivati.
My dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in human life the cycle of sacrifice thus established by the Vedas certainly leads to life full of sin. Living only for the satisfaction of the senses, such a person lives in a vain.
Text 17. यस्त्वात्मरतिरा एव स्वाद आत्मतृप्तिश्च च मानवा आत्मनैव च सन्तुष्ट स तस्य कार्य न विद्यते.
But for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty.
Text 18. नैव तस्य कृतेनार्थो न कृतेनेह कश्चन न चास्य सर्वभूतेषु कश्चिद् अर्थव्यापाश्रयः.
A self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such a work, nor has he any need to depend on any other living being.
Text 19. तस्मादसक्तः सततं कार्यं कर्म समाचर असक्तो याचरन् कर्म परम् आपनोति पुरुषः.
Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the supreme.
Text 20. कर्मणेव हि संसिद्धिम् आस्थिता जनकादया लोकसङ्ग्रहमेवापि सम्पश्यन् कर्तुम् अर्हसि.
Kings such as Janaka attains perfection solely by performance of the prescribed duty. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work.
Text 21. यद्दादाचरति श्रेष्ठस् तत् तद् एवेतरो जना स यत् प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस् तद् अनुवर्तते.
Whatever action a great man performs, common man follows, and whatever standard he sets by exemplary act, all the world pursues.
Text 22. नामे पार्थास्ति कर्तव्यं त्रिषु लोकेषु किञ्चन नानवाप्तम् अवाप्तेव्यं वर्त एव च कर्मणि.
O son of Parth, there is no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties.
Jai Shri Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Swati.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Alpesh Prabhu. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for coming to today's chat session. We continue our reading of chapter 3 entitled Karma Yoga. If anyone's joining us for the first time, a warm welcome to you. My name is Vrindavan Chandra. I'm one of the facilitators, and we gather every day from 7:45 to 8:45 to read either a whole chapter or part of a chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and then we discuss one verse in more detail. So today we'll be discussing text number 15 from chapter number 3. Before we begin, we always recite the Mangala Charanam prayers to invoke auspiciousness. So you can also join me behind muted mics. In your Bhagavad Gita, you find all of the Mangala Charanam prayers. If you have the Bhagavad Gita as it is, you'll find it on page number 1, where it says introduction. Om Jnana Timirandasya
Chaksu
Tam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shrivashari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Dishatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So today's verse Karma Brahmodbhavam Vedi Brahmakshara Samudbhavan Tasmat Sarvagatam Brahma Nityam Yajne Tatishtitam. The word for word synonyms. Karma, work. Brahma, from the Vedas. Udbhavam, produced. Vidi, you should know. Brahma, the Vedas. Akshara, from the Supreme Brahman, personality of Godhead. Samudbhavan, directly manifested. Tasmat, therefore. Sarvagatam, all-pervading. Brahma, transcendence. Nityam, eternally. Yajne, in sacrifice. Pratishtam, situated. Translation. Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Yagartha karma, or the necessity of work for the satisfaction of Krishna only, is more expressly stated in this verse. If we have to work for the satisfaction of the Yagya Purush Vishnu, then we must find out the direction of work in Brahman, or the transcendental Vedas. The Vedas are therefore codes of working direction. Anything performed without the direction of the Vedas is called vikarma, or unauthorized or sinful work. Therefore, one should always take direction from the Vedas to be saved from the reaction of work. As one has to work in ordinary life by the direction of the state, one similarly has to work under the direction of the supreme state of the Lord. Such directions in the Vedas are directly manifested from the breathing of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is said, Asya Mahato Bhutasya Nishvasitam Etad Yad Rigvedo Yajurveda Samavedo Tarvan Gira Saha. The four Vedas, namely the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, the Sama Veda, and Atharva Veda, are all emanations from the breathing of the great personality of Godhead. Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad 4.5.11. The Lord, being omnipotent, can speak by breathing air. For as it is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, the Lord has the omnipotence to perform through each of his senses the action of all of the senses. In other words, the Lord can speak through his breathing, and he can impregnate by his eyes. In fact, it is said that he glanced over material nature and thus fathered all living entities. After creating or impregnating the conditioned souls into the womb of material nature, he gave his directions in the Vedic wisdom as to how such conditioned souls can return home back to Godhead. We should always remember that the conditioned souls in material nature are all eager for material enjoyment. But the Vedic directions are so made that one can satisfy one's perverted desires, then return to Godhead, having finished his so-called enjoyment. It is a chance for the conditioned souls to attain liberation. Therefore, the conditioned souls must try to follow the process of yajna by becoming Krishna conscious. Even those who have not followed the Vedic injunctions may adopt the principles of Krishna consciousness, and that will take the place of performance of Vedic yajnas or karmas. So the verse again. Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. So in this section of the Bhagavad Gita, and in particular in these two verses in the 14th and 15th, the Lord is trying to make a very, very specific point. And we should try to understand what is Krishna's line of thought in this verses. Who would like to, who feel that they've understood those two verses, 14 and 15, like to explain what they think is Krishna's line of thought? What is Krishna getting at in these verses? Anyone understands and would like to say in their own words? Okay, not to worry. We shall discuss.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Okay, Prabhu, you go first, and then Mataji after that.
No, I will let Mataji go first, Prabhuji.
No, go ahead, Prabhuji. It's ladies second, men first.
What I understood, Prabhuji, all these activities which are prescribed in the Vedas are directly coming from the Supreme Lord. But consequently, all that is eternally will be situated when we do those in the act of sacrifice, like we are doing for the Supreme Lord satisfaction or to make him happy for his pleasure. Then it will become transcendence, otherwise it will become material. That's what I understood, Prabhuji.
What will become material, Prabhu? I just didn't catch that final line.
The activities, whatever the activities prescribed in the Vedas, like maybe the way activities we do in the mode of goodness or mode of passion, based
Yes.
on Varna or whatever, All if you do as the acts of sacrifice, it becomes transcendent. So it becomes like, so make for doing the satisfaction of Supreme Lord, it will become transcendent and everything will become like a spiritual or eternal. But
Okay.
do for the sense satisfaction.
Okay.
Well, it is not mentioned, but in the words. But I think if you're not doing for the sacrifice of the Supreme Lord or satisfaction of Supreme Lord, maybe it will bind to the karma.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Nice points you make there. Bhagwati Mataji, what would you like to say?
Well, I just think that Krishna here reveals that it's between yagna and the eternal essence of in this sloka. He says that yagna is an integral part of the eternal essence, and it is born out of the Vedas. Am I right?
Yes, yagya is described in
And
the
then, and also there is, there are actions. There's karma yoga. There are two types of actions. One is selfless, and one is selfish. So these two actions really bind us to these worldly objects, and selfless actions do not. Selfish actions does bind us. That's what I understood from this Vedas sort of thing.
Okay, that's also good points you make, Mataji. So we'll expand on both of the points that you and Venkat Prabhu made. So there's some important words in this verse. Firstly, there's the word Brahma. Now, in Vedic literature, each word can have multiple meanings. So in this verse, the word Brahma, which is used a few times, at least the first twice, is used referring to the Vedas. And we'll explain what is the purpose of the Vedas. And then in the last line, it said here, Nityam Yagne Pratishtitam. That the Lord is eternally situated in sacrifice. Now, what does that mean? The Lord is eternally situated in sacrifice. The Lord, Brahman, is situated in sacrifice. Some analogies may help. Like, we have moisture all around us. But if we want to take advantage of that moisture in the form of water, and we want to drink it, it has to be accessible. It means there must be some process of condensation and then rain and then catching the water, and then we can drink. All the moisture, water in one sense, is all around us. It's not accessible. Same way, electricity or electrons, it's all around in the environment, but it has to be captured and made accessible to us in a certain way through a plug that it can be used. So in the same way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is manifested everywhere. But he has to be made accessible to us. So this verse is saying Nityam Yagne Pratishtitam. The Lord becomes accessible to us through yagya. The Lord becomes accessible to us through yagya. And one who performs yagya, he gets access, or she gets access through the Lord. And that, in one sense, it's looked at in different ways. It is said that everybody has to perform yagya. Just like, for two reasons. In the previous verse, it's been described that we perform yagya. Why? to get food grains. And that's for sustenance. This verse is explaining a higher stage. Not only do we perform yagya to enable us to get sustenance, but we perform yagya to get access to the Lord. There's one verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, it says, Agni, or the fire in the yagya, that is the mouth of Lord Vishnu. But more importantly, it is the consciousness of one who performs yagya. Yagya is meant to purify in two ways. Firstly, it gives us access to the Lord, Nityam Yagya Pratishtitam. And secondly, it is said that yagya removes the false ego. It removes the sense of self-proprietorship. And it enables one to perceive the transcendence. Why? Because the very act of performing yagya, it instills the recognition that I have to recognize that what I am receiving is not coming through me. It's being bestowed upon me. Just like we all get electricity in our homes. That is coming from the power station. And the power station is being run, maintained, subsidized by some organization or entity. If we take that electricity and we refuse to pay for what we are consuming, then we are considered a thief. They'll come and knock on our door, they'll give us summons, and we'll be put in jail. In the same way, the living entities in the material world, we are receiving everything, even just breathing. There's one demigod in charge. There are 33 million demigods. All of them are in charge of something. And if we live our lives, we consume, we take, we enjoy, but we don't pay due, then we are thieves, we are sinful. But we know that if one performs yagya for Lord Vishnu, then one is satisfying all the demigods. But that's a higher stage. That's the highest stage. Yagya starts off with a materialistic person performing karma kanda yagya. He performed yagya for some fruitive result. I will perform this yagya, I may get a good son. I perform this yagya, I may get a good wife. I perform this yagya, I may get some wealth. So it starts off with karma kanda yagya, self-centered yagya. But still there is the sense that I have to please to receive. It's not only not performing yagya. One performs yagya. Yagyas entail sacrifice. But it comes to the stage, the highest stage of yagya is the life of a pure devotee, whose entire life is a sacrifice. It's a yagya for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So these yagyas are very important. Therefore, in the 10th verse, the Lord says, in the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men along with the sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, be thou happy by this yagya sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. So there's the full spectrum there, living happily in the material world to achieving liberation. And as one progresses through various stages of yagya, the purification becomes deeper and deeper and deeper. When the bottom end of the spectrum, it's less about the Lord, more about ourselves. And the top end of the spectrum, it's everything about the Lord, everything for the pleasure of the Lord, and no personal consideration. So these yagyas are extremely important for purification. Now, some people may ask, why is the Lord talking about that here in these verses in Bhagavad Gita? Because it's all about work. And these verses 14 to 15, they're sometimes called the cycle of sacrifice. And it's nicely captured in this diagram. We have the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Akshara. Akshara means what? Imperishable. The Lord is imperishable. And from him comes the Vedas. And in the verse, Prabhupada talks about how the Vedas are manifested. Can anyone remember what Prabhupada says in the purport? And he quotes the Upanishads. How is the Vedas manifested? Through the breathing of the Lord. Simply by breathing, the Lord manifests the Vedas, all transcendental knowledge. And Prabhupada talks about how the Lord's senses are completely interchangeable. He can speak by his breathing. He can eat with his eyes. The Lord is fully omnipotent. All of his senses are interchangeable, can perform any function. So from the Lord comes the Vedas. And Prabhupada talks about in one lecture, just like when you buy an apparatus, a blender or something, it comes with instructions how to function with the blender, how to operate it. So the material world comes like that. How to live a life, a truthful life where one does not become implicated in sinful activities. And what does the Vedas do? It gives prescribed actions, which is called karma. The Vedas prescribe various actions. And what is one of the main actions or karma or activities for the living entities in this material world? It's a yagya, sacrifice. Civilized human beings must perform sacrifice. And when there is sacrifice being performed, then rains are guaranteed. And rains are essential for food grains. And food grains are essential for the living entities. And the living entities, they have to offer that food, which we described in verse 13. They have to offer the food to the Lord. So this is sometimes called the cycle of sacrifice. The cycle of sacrifice. So the purpose, sacrifice has a very, very clear intention. So some person may ask them, okay, I've heard these verses from Bhagavad Gita. I heard what you're saying. I know we have to perform sacrifice. But what is the sacrifice I should perform? It is said in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in Kali Yuga, this is the sacrifice that intelligent people perform. Krishna Varnam Trisha Krishnam Sangopangashtra Parshadam Yagnai Sankitan Praye Yajanti He Su Medashaha. In the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead who constantly sings the name of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. So who is this verse talking about? Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yes, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His complexion is not blackish, but he is Krishna himself. What is his complexion? Golden.
Golden color.
Yeah. And he is accompanied by his associates, the Panchatattva and all of the Lord's associates, and his servants. And what is his weapons?
Holy name.
Chanting.
Yes, the holy name, the mridanga, the kartals, and his beauty. The Mayavadis, they were totally not interested in chanting. They felt chanting was for only sentimental people. So how did Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu capture them? He captured them with his weapon of beauty. When they saw him, they were so struck by his beauty. That's Prakashananda Saraswati went right to the back where Mahaprabhu was. He took his hand and led him to sit right in the front next to him. And his humility. His humility, the Lord captured them. So intelligent persons in this age of Kali, they su medashaha. This means intelligent persons. How do they, what yagya do they perform? Sankirtan yagya. Yagne Sankirtan praye. They perform Sankirtan yagya. Now some people may say, Vedas say yagya means fire. Yagya means fire. But in Sankirtan yagya, there is no fire. So how are we saying yagya? Anyone like to answer that?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, it's a bliss. The transcendental bliss will bring up.
Yes, you're very, very close to the answer, Mata. Because,
Yeah.
sorry, someone else likes to say?
Yeah, sorry, Prabhu. Yeah, Hare Krishna is Alpesh. Yeah. So while you also chanting the Harinam in Yagna, you also sacrificing in terms of this Yagna is that, of course, the 4 regulative principle Prabhupada has given. You're following that 4 regulative. That is also sacrifice in sense on performing this Yagna. That's what I want to add.
That's a good point you make. There's also sacrifice involved in terms of following the 4 regulative principles. But there's a deeper meaning behind yagya. The deeper meaning between yagya in a yagya is we have to ask ourselves the question, what is the ultimate purpose of yagya? There's 2 ultimate purposes of yagya. One is to purify, and 2 is to connect. Those are the ultimate purpose when they do sacrifice, fire sacrifice. That should be the outcome. Therefore, it is said we need to have qualified persons doing the yagya. Because without the qualified persons, the purification won't be there and the connection won't be there. But when one performs Sankirtan yagya, the ultimate purpose is automatically achieved in the most effective way. Cheto darpanam marjanam. That this Sankirtan yagya, it cleanses the heart of all of the unwanted things. And what happens when the heart becomes cleansed? Simply by chanting Krishna's name, automatically we connect with Krishna. So Sankirtan Yagya, it achieves the ultimate purposes of the Yagya, of purification and connection. And on top of that, in this Kali Yuga, where it is so difficult to do anything, to collect so much of ingredients, ghee and wood and grain. Imagine every day in the morning when we get up 4 o'clock, you have to get a havan, you have to get wood, you have to have tons of ghee, you have to have grains. You have to collect all of that just to perform yagya like that. But what we do now, we get up, we take bath, we take our beads, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Or if you go for Mangal Arati in the temple, you chant Hare Krishna with all the devotees. In English, there's a saying, it's a no-brainer. So therefore, intelligent persons in this Kali Yuga, they take to Sankirtan Yagya. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's one beautiful verse spoken by the chief guru of all the demigods, Sukracharya, the number one person who performs yagya. In the 8th canto, 23rd chapter, he speaks this verse, beautiful verse, one of my most favorite verses in the Bhagavatam. Mantratas tantratas chidram, deshe kalahar vashtutaha, sarvam karoti nischidra, anusan kirtanam tava. And what is the translation of the verse? He says, there may be discrepancies in pronouncing the mantras and observing the regulative principles. And moreover, there may be discrepancies in regard to time, place, person, and paraphernalia. He's talking about performing yagya. There may be discrepancies in pronouncing the mantras, in observing the regulative principles, in regard to time, place, person, and paraphernalia. But when your Lordship's holy name is chanted, everything becomes faultless. Therefore, Prabhupada, whenever he used to have initiation, wedding ceremony, sannyas ashram, initiation, as soon as the yagya is done, what he would say? Now began kirtan. Whenever in ISKCON you see there's an initiation or there is some yagya, what do we do in the end? We do Sankirtan. Because everything becomes faultless if you made a mistake in the mantra, you made a mistake in the regulative principles, you did it at the wrong time, you did it at the wrong place, you had the wrong person, you had the wrong paraphernalia. Nothing matters. Everything wrong you did is faultless if you chant the Lord's holy name. And this is spoken by Shukracharya in Srimad Bhagavatam, 8th canto. So dear devotees, we are very fortunate in Kali Yuga. Yagya that the Lord talks about, which is so important in these verses of the Bhagavad Gita. We can very easily perform the topmost yagya, the most potent yagya, and we can become perfect. Therefore, Prabhupada says in the purport, even those who have not followed the Vedic injunctions may adopt the principles of Krishna consciousness that will take the place of performance of Vedic yagyas or karmas. So I'll stop here. I went a bit over time. I apologize. Has anyone got any questions or comments?
So Prabhuji, in the Hindu ceremonies like weddings and during the Janam or all these even Maran ceremonies, they perform karma kanda yagna, more likely, and also why they not looking into just doing this Sankirtan to simplify it? Why they still have to do this yagna and then followed by, like you just said?
For a few reasons, Prabhu. Firstly, they do not have faith that the Sankirtan Yagya is the topmost yagya. Secondly, Krishna says, such people are very attached to the flowery words of the Vedas. They can't give up that conception. And thirdly, they are not properly directed by their spiritual teachers and their leaders on what is good. Even in ancient times, or even a few thousand years ago, they were making mistakes in the mantras. And nowadays, even one syllable, just one word you just get wrong, the whole meaning can change. The whole purpose is defeated. So to answer your question, Alpesh Prabhu, is because they are too attached, they lack faith, and they lack proper direction by their leaders. Like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was performing, and this was 500 years ago, he was criticized. He was called a fanatic. He was called a third-class sannyasi because he was performing Sankirtan Yagya. Because the stereotype is, in religion, you get two types of people. You get the enthusiastic, you get the less intelligent who like to sing and dance, and then you get the reflective, who sit and they just study and chant mantras. So it is the stereotypes need to be broken down.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yes,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna, Prabhuji. What you just said to the previous caller, the priests from the manor, they follow the similar wedding ceremonies as the
Yes.
other priests. So,
Yes.
but surely they're following Krishna consciousness. So
Yes.
how come they do the same ceremony?
Because the Vedic ceremony says there are certain samskars you have to perform during wedding, during initiation, during childbirth and so on, name giving. Those are prescribed Vedas, Vedic traditions. And we do that, even in the Vaishnava tradition, we do that. But we always understand that is secondary to chanting the holy name. It's not that we ignore it. It's not that we discard it. They are bona fide Vedic ceremonies. But we understand that they come with their flaws. Because in this Kali Yuga, it's very hard to get the right ingredients. It's very hard to get the right mantras 100% right. It's very hard to do everything on the exact time. So we do it, but we know there may be many discrepancies in what we did in those yagyas. So we make everything complete and faultless by adding the chanting of the Maha Mantra in the end. Do you understand, Mataji, what I'm saying?
I think so. I'll have to reflect and think about it. Yes, thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Is it also because we're so conditioned in believing that you have to go through tremendous pain to get goodness, to get the essence of, liberation or whatever we're looking for, then to the faith is missing because Harinam Kirtan, Sankirtan Yagna is so simple. We can't believe it would get us anywhere.
Yeah, that's
just the simple act, you go around chanting, and also you need to put effort in it and be sincere about it, obviously. But I think people don't believe because it's such a simple act.
Exactly, Jali Mataji. We have become conditioned to thinking unless it's complicated,
yes,
unless it's expensive, unless it requires lots of hardships to go to, it can't be good. But everybody who's got some common sense knows. There's a saying in English, keep it simple, stupid,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Unless is more, yes.
yeah, I don't know. We just become conditioned. Yeah.
But actually, Prabhu, I just wanted to, I felt like commenting this way.
Yeah.
It is not simple. Only when you start chanting, you know how
Yeah, because
in trouble.
you're dealing with the most difficult aspect, and that's the mind.
Yes, that's right.
Chanting, you have to focus the mind. And
Yeah.
what Arjuna says, it's more easy to control the raging wind than to control the mind.
Yeah.
Mm.
Externally, they think it's simple, but ask them to sit and chant.
Yeah.
Or Sankirtan Yagya, to get on with a group of devotees. Everybody wants to. Anyway, it is simple if you are simple.
Yeah, then this is it again. Yeah, I mean, if you are crooked, it is it is crooked. Yeah. But Kirtan, everyone likes it, Prabhu. You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. You know, yeah. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else has got any questions or comments or corrections? You all agree? Yeah.
Yes, that was really nice, Prabhuji, the way you explained Karma Kand Yagna and then Transcendental Yagna, which is the Sankirtan Yagna. Now, on the Karma Kand side of the Yagna,
Yes.
you know, like the one verse which what we just talked about, the 14th, where it says that all living bodies subsist on food growing,
Yes.
which are produced from the rain. And
Yeah.
rain is produced by performance of yagna. And
Yes.
the yagna is born of prescribed duty. So when we look at, I mean, this is a bit funny. I mean, we never get stop of rain in this country, right? And nobody performs this yagna, right? But we naturally get the rain. But I can see the reaction on the opposite side of this, that because of the karma we are doing to the earth, we are getting more reaction in terms of fire and flooding and all that sort of things. So what's your point on this kind of context, that when we don't want rain, the rain comes, and when people who wants rain, they don't get rain in the world?
You know, Prabhu, it's funny you say this. You know, in the Krishna book, when Krishna saw Nanda Maharaj, he was preparing for a sacrifice. So Krishna went to him and said, you know, Father, what are you doing? And then Nanda Maharaj says, I'm preparing for a sacrifice. Then Krishna asked him, who you preparing the sacrifice for? And he said, it's Indra. Then Krishna asked, why Indra? Then Nanda Maharaj said, because Indra provides the rains. Then Krishna spoke karma mimasa philosophy. He said, but rain is just a natural process. You have the sun shining on the water, there's evaporation, then there's condensation, and then there's clouds formed, and then the clouds burst and you get rain. It's simply a natural process. So why do you have to, you worship Indra? You worship Govardhan Hill, because Govardhan Hill is supplying green grass, water, and everything. So Krishna, he used that argument against his father. But and he almost you know, confused Nanda Maharaj. He was so clever, this little boy Krishna. But we understand, people may think externally, this is a natural process. But you may see there's some countries, there's bodies of water, there is the sun, there's evaporation, there is condensation, there is clouds, but there's no rain.
Yeah.
It's simply a natural process. Then why? Ultimately, they are superior beings in control. Because you can see how things are happening. So in terms of UK getting a lot of rain and we don't see much sacrifice happening, maybe there's some pious credit somewhere, we're getting rain, but people continue being sinful. Or maybe it's because the devotees are chanting Hare Krishna, and because of the who knows? Who knows? But we can simply go on what the Vedas say. We have faith in the Vedas, and we follow what the Vedas say.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Girish Prabhu.
Prabhuji, as it was just mentioned on the slide that rain produced from the yagna, but as you explained, it's a natural process.
Yes.
So it's not produced by the yagna then. When it's a natural process, then we don't need yagna to get the rain then.
But I went on to qualify. There are other places, the same natural processes are taking place.
Yeah.
But you're not getting the rain?
Yes.
So it's not through the natural process. There's some other higher forces that are in action here. Because you go to other places, you can see there's bodies of water.
Mm-hmm.
The sun is shining down, there's evaporation, there's condensation, you see clouds, but the rain never comes.
Yeah.
So it can't be just a natural process. Because if you analyze the natural processes are taking place everywhere, but some places it's not raining. Because there are some other forces that are more powerful forces at play here.
That explains it beautifully, Prabhuji, because it's a way of controlling, especially the population and the disease and things, and how different country, different climate manage these difficult, the population as well.
Yeah.
So the rain causes flood, it kills people off. The fire burns and kill people off. Pandemic comes and kill people off. It's like that, I suppose. And as you say, it's the power of being. It's not natural.
Yes, true.
Procession. Yeah.
And ultimately, we have faith in the word of the Vedas.
Yeah.
What the Vedas is saying. Any comments?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Girish Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Vrindavan, Chandra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Vani Mataji.
Prabhuji, in Krishna book, at the time, Krishna's time, 5,000 years ago, when the monsoon comes and, the nature, like they get abundant of rain and, very luscious, grass and fruits and flowers, everything is in abundance. Because at that time, everybody was, religious and, everybody was following this varnashram and everything. So everything was, there was no scarcity of anything and no natural disasters. Because at that time, Mother Nature and Krishna, everybody was happy. But as there's so much sin going on. That's why this is all the Mother Nature. And as you explained, Prabhu, that the other superpowers is controlling.
True, very true. Nice comment and realization, Krishna Vani Mataji. Okay, Prabhus and Matajis, I think we've gone a bit over time and it's a weekday. Some of you must be doing work, have got to go to bed early. Thank you for your participation and your very nice questions. We'll close today by offering our Vaishnava pranams to everyone. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are full of compassion for fallen conditioned souls, and they are just like desired trees who can fulfill the desires of everyone. Panchakalpa Turabhyasta. Ila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna,
Thank you,
Prabhu.
Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you.